Hello, everyone. We have the lovely Ashley and Tracey with us. So start us off, Ashley. Tell us, when did you get diagnosed with diabetes?
I was diagnosed 2016, the 25th of August.
What was that, about 3 years ago?
Almost, yeah.
Nearly, yeah.
Coming up to our third diversary.
Diversity. I love that word.
Yes.
So when you got diagnosed, what they first tell you?
We were told to just keep eating the normal diet with
That she was normal and, well, she was sick, but she was normal and shouldn't be treated any different. And that I shouldn't go and do anything stupid like cutting carbs on her.
Well, I guess I'll be more specific. What brought her in the first place? Like, how sick was she?
Ashley was really, really sick. We didn't know anything about type 1 diabetes. Now I know there are a few people that were around us that had type 1, but at the time I wasn't aware of people around us that had type 1 diabetes. I knew it existed, but I didn't know anything about it. And so Ashley, when she was diagnosed, if we had gotten to the hospital even just 2 hours later, well, she may not be sitting here right now because she was very, very sick. Even my husband and myself were trying to diagnose her when she was sitting here at home because she was almost passing in and out of consciousness in bed. She wasn't able to talk to us. And I was lucky that a few days before that, like, she looked like she just had the flu. So I made a doctor's appointment up the road to just take her in and just to get checked up and to make sure that she was okay. And then she just progressively got worse. We took her to the doctor. Even the doctor up at the clinic had no idea what he was looking at. He said to me, possibly she's having an asthma attack because her breathing was so bad. It wasn't until we got to the hospital where the nurse in emergency looked at me and asked me if she was a diabetic, and that was the first time I'd heard the word diabetic. I went, what? Sorry, I beg your pardon. And she said, is she a diabetic? I don't know what you're saying to me. I have no idea what you're saying to me. And I remember her just grabbing Ashley, putting her onto a bed, and these nurses just running down the hallway with her. And I looked at my husband, who had 2 of our children outside. We've got 4, but another 2 of our children. And he picked them both up under their arms, and we just ran down that hallway. He said, follow that woman. I said, I am, and I'm running. And I looked at him and I went, apparently they think she's a diabetic. I still did not know what that meant. Because what I'd been learning 6 months prior was all type 2 diabetes stuff. And I thought, she's really healthy. How can she be a diabetic? So, yeah, it was a huge eye-opener for us what type 1 actually was. Like, it grounded us. We were floored because we knew nothing about it.
All right. And so when you started, what advice did they give you? Told you what a normal diet look like?
Well, I was having around 10 exchanges every meal, and that was 3 meals a day.
So that's 150 carbs, 3 meals a day.
Yikes.
Yeah, because they told me that, so Ashley lost a lot of weight. I mean, that's pretty normal when it comes to diagnosis with type 1. She'd lost a lot of weight. They said to me, look, she just needs to eat anything and everything she wants. She's got to have all the carbs that she can because she's got to put on weight, and she needs to have insulin. So therefore, she needs to have carbs. But then she needs to have the carbs. So she needs to have insulin. It was like this lovely little perfect circle. She needs to have insulin, so therefore she needs to have carbs. She needs to have carbs, so therefore she needs to have insulin. And things just didn't feel right, but at the same time, I didn't have enough knowledge to question everything at the hospital. And so we went home to 150 grams of carbs per meal, most meals. So 3 times for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, she was having that amount of carbs. And it got to the point where I remember sitting here one night and she was in tears because she was so full and couldn't eat what we had prepared for her. So things like rice crackers, noodles, chocolate fortified drinks with milk. You know, I mean, now we'd sit here and turn our noses up at it and go, oh my God, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. But at the time, we really thought that we had to do this, and she would have an array of food sitting. It was like a buffet. She would have food sitting around her, and we would, okay, that's 1.5, that's 3 exchanges, that's 4, and we would count everything. We would then have these cards where we would work out insulin. We would give her the insulin. She would have this food. And I remember some nights sitting here thinking, how are we going to do this for the rest of our life? How am I going to sit there and who sits there and goes, right, well, I'm going to eat all this food, add it up, and then eats it? You don't. You eat until you're full. Yet now we had to change our whole life to prepare these meals.
And I was told I couldn't have snacks, and I was really
She wasn't allowed to have snacks. She wasn't allowed to, because she had to eat in this window. This was her meal. You had to work out the carbs. That's it. There you go. Off you go. Go home. Do that.
Wow. So what were your blood sugars during that time eating all those carbs?
They would range from around like probably 13 to 18, somewhere around that.
Yeah. So she was up within your parameters. She was up at around about the 300 to 400 mark.
Consistently?
Yeah, like she would be up there, and then you'd have your insulin and you'd come down, and then you would go, oh my God, she's really low, and you'd give her food to put her back up. So yes, most of the time you are predominantly in those higher elevated blood sugar levels because, at the time we didn't have a CGM, so you would just monitor with finger pricks and you would see her coming down and you would panic because when we were diagnosed, they set fear into you that if she goes low, she's just going to drop and die like that. A hypoglycemic attack, she's just going to die. So and as a mother, oh my goodness, this is my baby. She's not going to die on me. So you correct and you overcorrect. Most of the time when you correct a hypo, you end up overcorrecting because you don't know how much insulin is actually playing and dropping the bloods in her body. You just don't know. So yeah, we were roller coastering a lot. And you could see it though. As a mum, I mean, I have 4 children. I watch my children and everything that they do. And I could see hypos and hypers and the roller coastering effect that it was having on her. She would be happy playing, and then the next minute you would see her and she would just slump because her bloods were going really, really low. And so therefore she's lethargic, she's got no energy. And then as she's coming up, you could see her sort of go really groggy and sort of not be able to understand things you're saying to her. And that was upsetting me so much, watching those waves of glucose, the blood glucose levels going up and down. It was heart-wrenching. It was breaking my heart watching my baby go up and down like that.
Do you have anything to add to that, Ashley? Like how you felt?
Most of the time I just felt really tired and without energy.
So
yeah. So
you eventually made the switch to low carb, but what exactly is the straw that broke the camel's back there?
So it was one night we Ashley went to bed at normal time about 7 o'clock, and she was at fairly good levels. And then it was about 10 o'clock. My husband actually went in and tested her. She was at about 7, which I don't quite know off the top of my head your figures, which was acceptable. 7 was okay at that time. Now it's not, but 7 was okay then. And it was probably about an hour and a half later. It's about 11:30, and I was walking down to the kitchen to get a drink. And I just had this horrible feeling, like a really horrible sick feeling in my stomach. And I said to my husband, I'm just going to go in and check Ashley. And he goes, no. We tested her when she went to sleep. And we only tested her an hour or so ago. We've got the alarm set to test her at 2 o'clock. We'll get up at 2 and test her. And I said, no, I can't do that. I feel really, really sick. I need to go and test her. This was about 3 weeks after diagnosis. And I went in and tested her, and she was down at 1.2, which is, I think,
21, 20 something.
20s for your
20.
Yeah. She was really, really low. Within an hour and a half, And I just remember this huge sinking feeling in me because so much was out of my control. This all of a sudden just was happening in front of me. I knew I needed to correct her.
21.6.
21.6, thank you. So we corrected her. I was sitting there as a mum and all these things are going through my head going, oh my goodness, my baby, it's 11 o'clock at night. She's not getting sleep. She's awake. She should be sleeping. She's not going to grow properly. How on earth am I going to be a mum and look after this beautiful little girl that I have and a mum to 3 other children? Because I've got to get up the next morning and do all the mummy things that I've got to do, get them all to school, fed, dressed. And so much was going through my mind. We corrected Ashley, got her back to a safe level. And I remember shutting the door and I sunk down in the hallway. I leant up against the wall and I just sunk down to the floor. And I was distraught. I was crying because I just didn't know what I was going to do. And I couldn't keep living like this. But a part of me is like, but you have to. Like, this is what's been dealt. This is what's been given to you. And I just remember going through this huge tug of war in my mind of what on earth are we going to do? And then the next day, my father, who plays a big role with us and our diabetes management, he messaged me with an email saying, capital letters, you must watch this. And it was a gentleman in Queensland, which is a state above us here in Australia, and he was diagnosed at 40 and he manages his type 1 with diet, so with low carb, with eating. And I remember us sitting there watching that video and just having this huge this big emotion of hope came rushing through me that we were actually going to now survive, because somebody, look at this man, that he's thriving, he's living, he's doing things with food, and we just knew we were going to live then and be able to do things.
So that happened. You found out about low carb. What was that switch like?
For me, it was really easy because we were already doing lower carb things because I was trying to help my dad. My dad, about 6 months before Ashley was diagnosed, he called me. He'd started watching many videos, many YouTube things about type 2 diabetes stuff, sugar, cutting carbs, etc., etc. So I was creating meals and recipes to help him to eat differently. And so I'd already incorporated some of those things into my family about 6 months beforehand. So going low carb from my side of things was not that hard because I already had some meals and recipes that I was doing. But from Ashley's side of things, she was quite happy because it was going back to the way that we didn't eat like this before. We didn't eat, we had things.
The only thing carby that I was actually cutting out that we had before I was diagnosed was pretty much just fruit.
Fruit, yeah. Ashley was a big fruit eater.
So you went from low carb to high carb after getting diagnosed?
Yes, we went from fairly low carb. So we didn't in the house have soft drink, cordial, anything like that, because I didn't grow up having those things. My children didn't have those things purely because I don't believe in drinking sugar drinks because it's bad for your teeth. There are other reasons now why my children don't have those drinks, but at the time I don't believe in those drinks. So yes, we went from eating, I wouldn't say low carb like we are now, but
it was the only sugars that we did had would have been from fruit.
Was from fruit and possibly quinoa, wholemeal pasta, but we didn't really have that often. Like we didn't have those meals often. So yeah, diagnosis was a big struggle for us because we went from lowish carb to this massive high carb meals and then back to what we knew that was safe and healthy and
lower
Man,
carb.
And then it was even lower carb.
That's some disastrous advice. But what I wanted to know was, what was the change for you, Ashley? Like, how were your blood sugars once you cut those carbs back out?
They became a lot more stable and steadier. And Yeah, they were just a little bit easier to control because I wasn't going too high nor too low because, well, what we used to correct was a little bit different. We got smaller jelly beans because we were told to have jelly beans the normal size. Then we got the smaller ones, and those ones were a little bit easier to handle. And yeah.
Yeah. So after diagnosis, or after we went low carb, sorry, her teacher was noticing that she was a lot happier in class. She was able to concentrate. She was focusing. Her grades went up in class because we were going back to what we knew. Her teacher was beautiful. We would learn diabetes stuff together after Ashley was diagnosed. But yeah, once we went back to a better diet, food, like really using food again, things started to improve. However, obviously once things were starting to improve, her body became healthy, and then our bloods became bad again because we didn't have any idea about what insulin was. Nobody would talk to me. Nobody would help me understand, why does the body need insulin? What is insulin? What is type 1 diabetes? Like, what does it actually mean to have type 1 diabetes?
You were never taught any of that?
No, nobody would actually sit down with us. When we'd go into the first couple of endocrinologist appointments, it was all bring up her graphs from her meter. Why did she go low? She was low 3 weeks ago. See that one there? Why was she low? What did you do? I don't know. I don't remember. That was 3 weeks ago. And so we were always in trouble for these things that were happening around us. And no one would explain. And then, they'd sit there and go, okay, well, she's on this fixed amount of Lantus, so long-lasting insulin. You're on this card. We had these several cards that we had to choose from to give insulin. Very hard to explain, but you choose a card and you work out what they're doing for the day. So you choose this card, and then it gives you a graph, and it shows you, well, she's having this many exchanges, her blood glucose level's here, therefore she needs X amount of insulin. But you had 7 cards to choose from. It was very, very confusing.
So instead of like trying to just teach you the fundamentals, they basically tried to push a sort of a formula on you.
Oh yeah, there was a huge formula, and this was the only way, and this was going to work because it was science. And it was for my husband. It was so my husband's a software engineer. He builds computers and things. He's a very smart man. So for him, those graphs and those cards were really important to him because it was science. It helped him get through diabetes when Ashley was diagnosed. For me, it was horrendous because there was so much structure. It was so much, not nonsense, but nobody lives their life that structured, that routine, that, methodical. So it was really, really hard for the both of us because we come from such different angles. So not that he thrived because he could see that Ashley was sick and things were happening, but
He understood it a little
those cards were his lifeline because it was straightforward for him.
I see.
But for us, doing it day to day and all the time, it was nonsense. It was just sending us crazy.
All right. And so you went low carb, you started following that advice, and that was
Yep.
going well for you?
It was. However, every appointment that we would go to, I never actually told anybody that we were strict low carb or that we were low carb because I knew that I would get into trouble. And I was already in trouble because, we had bad bloods and had bad HbA1c.
Which is crazy. I mean, they
No,
don't care about the high blood sugars, but you cut back on carbs, then suddenly they're going to have to have a talk with you.
You're a bad mom. So, yes, I already knew I was going to be in trouble, so I never actually told anybody that we were low carb. But I would say to the endocrinologist, like, look, she doesn't like pasta and rice, and she never did actually before diagnosis. Ashley never ate pasta or rice. She didn't like it. So I wasn't actually lying, but when we went to our appointments, I was saying, how do you give insulin if she's not having any carbs? Because what they had taught us was if you have carbs, you have insulin. You need to have insulin, so therefore you need to have carbs. So I was trying to ask questions and questioning this little circle, that the loop that they had us in, because I could see that her HbA1c was slowly going up, and there were parts of our day where we, when she'd wake up in the morning, she was at blood glucose levels of like 300, 350. And we were told her long-lasting Lantus dose at nighttime, she only needs a little bit because it's just to make sure she doesn't go into ketoacidosis overnight. Like, it's just so she doesn't wake up too high. Yet she was waking up at levels that, from what I was starting to read from myself and understanding, were not what myself as a normal body would be waking up at. And so she was tired all the time. She was not wanting to go to school, but still nobody for some reason would teach me what insulin was. What are these insulins? We were just given, here you go, here's your pen, go home. She needs that with a meal. That's her Nova Rapid. She needs that with meals. And here's your Lantus, and she just needs to have that at night time. See you later. Off you go. Why am I having this insulin? I mean, do you know how many insulins are out there? We got a piece of paper, a pamphlet that had all the insulins that you can get. And I remember standing there with the pharmacist, and I said, well, what's this insulin? And she goes, oh, no, she doesn't need to worry about that. Well, what's this insulin? Oh, no, you've been given this one. This is your insulin. Why? Why have we been given this insulin when there is, 15 or something of them? I can't remember exactly, but nobody would help me understand. I know this is life-saving. I understand that you guys, something now is wrong with your pancreas, but what is this? What do you actually need it for? What do we actually need it for? And for almost 2 years, it was 18 months, not one person would teach me.
So you were going low carb and you were getting better from that, but you're still sort of flying blind. Who taught you the rest of what you need to know?
Yeah, I'm teaching her, but no. So eventually we found a GP here who started doing some research for me, and she would read things, and then we would go to appointments and she would teach me. And one of the things we did was we split our Lantus dose, and I started seeing, I started understanding a little bit more about how important insulin was. We're not on a pump, but I could see and understand why people would have a pump and why you would have insulin coming into you throughout the day. So that just made me want to learn even more. Like, what is this? What are we doing? And after seeing that GP, our HbA1c started to very slightly come down. So I knew there was something about all these insulins that was really, really important for her health. And then it was the beginning of 2017. My dad came down for Christmas, and he said to me, I've saved this interview. You have to watch this interview. We'll watch it together. It's of a lady she's a type 1 diabetic. And I went, okay, all right. And so we sat down on the couch, and Dad and I started watching the interview. And within a couple of minutes, Ashley came walking through, and she stopped, and she was staring at the TV, and she goes, oh my God, she's not on a pump. She keeps having needles. Because at that stage, the endocrinologist was grumpy with us again because we wouldn't go on the pump. We didn't want to go on the pump. We're in trouble. We're in trouble all the time.
We would find any excuse to get angry at
we
us.
were always in trouble. We're bad people.
At one point, there was nothing wrong with us. They just wanted to rip my gallbladder out because there was a stone in there, which was apparently, well, it was the cause of my pancreatitis. I went to hospital with 3 things wrong with me.
Yeah. So
That's a story for another time.
But they so we're always in trouble. We're bad people. But so we're watching this interview, and we restarted because Ashley came and sat down, and it was an interview done by Mike Mutzel, who runs High Intensity Health, and my dad and I follow him. We love him. He's great. and we were watching an interview that he did with Dr. Jodie Stanislaw, who is a type 1 diabetic herself. She has been since she was 7. She's now in her 40s. And we were just, from a mother's side of things, I was watching this beautiful lady on TV, thriving, healthy. She's a doctor. She's got type 1. She's skiing. She's running. And I just thought, I need to know this lady. I need to know what she's doing that keeps her alive and how she's surviving and she's doing all these things. My dad saw it from, a learning perspective, because my dad's like my husband. They're very smart men. They learn. And my dad's like, you have to learn from this lady. And I was like, oh, I know. We can learn so much. So that afternoon, I sent a message to Dr. Jodie. She's in Idaho in America. We're here in Canberra, Australia. We did Skype consultations with her for 3 months from that one interview. And that's how we became aware and had so much more understanding of what insulin is, what it's needed for in the body, how insulin and food, they don't work together. I mean, they work together, but they don't work together. You just, as we call it sugar surfing now. So being low carb, you're just going with what her body needs to do. So if she needs just 1 unit of insulin, we give her 1 unit of insulin. And it could be 2 hours after her meal. It could be an hour before her meal. Sometimes now, being low carb, we don't give insulin at mealtime because she doesn't need to have it because of what she's eating. Because we've just got an understanding of what food, what insulin, what it all does in the body.
Okay, that's great. So you finally got a handle on it. Is her teaching similar to Bernstein?
Oh, yes. So she
Okay.
follows a lot of Dr. Bernstein stuff. And I'd started reading Dr. Bernstein as well. So and like most type 1s, there's no right one way. As much as you love what Dr. Bernstein does and everything, he gives you a grounding, a basis of what you need to know, and you've got to implement it in your own life. And that's what I loved about Dr. Jodie, is she sat with us and talked and gave us these tools, but we now have to implement it in our life. But the thing is, she gave me stuff that I could put in my tool belt and we can get on with daily life, because I've got this grounding, this understanding, which was so beneficial.
That's fantastic. So how are you doing now? Now that you've finally got under control, how's your blood sugars doing now, Ashley?
They're pretty good. Yeah.
We have a HbA1c of 5.4 at the moment.
That's fantastic. And just for comparison, how were they before? Like in upwards of 300 to 400 range?
Well,
Before low carb.
So before low carb,
Yeah.
she was at a HbA1c of 9. That was our worst HbA1c.
All right, good to know. So
Yeah.
that's fantastic. And how long ago was that you finally managed to get under control?
So we started working with Dr. Jodie in February of 2017, so last year. Within 1 month of doing work with Dr. Jodie, we went from we'd done a HbA1c reading a few months prior to working with Dr. Jodie, and that was 7.8. After 1 month of working with Dr. Jodie, we got a HbA1c done, and she was down to 6.6. Because the first thing Dr. Jodie taught me, our very first appointment, which I still remember very vividly to this day, was all about basal insulin and how important basal is. Because as I think I mentioned before, we were told that basal was just to be given at nighttime, so she didn't go into ketoacidosis at nighttime and wake up too high. That was the understanding of basal. That's what I was given.
It's crazy that they only told you like half of the story the whole time.
Yeah.
You think the people you're paying to take care of you would, tell you everything you need to know.
Well, you would think.
Yeah.
they're making it complicated while trying to make it easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, possibly they don't even have an understanding either, and it's hard. I mean, they were giving us these insulins. So when we actually left the hospital, when Ashley was firstly diagnosed, we had 3 different insulins that they gave us. They didn't actually sit and ask us what we ate, how we ate, they just assumed that we ate the SAD diet, which is the standard American diet or the standard Australian diet. And so we were given another insulin that she was to have at night times to help deal with carbohydrates. So it was a longer, faster acting insulin, if that makes sense. And she was having these severe hypos because it would kick in way later. It was horrible. It was a real nightmare. And I remember saying to the endocrinologist, I'm like, he's going, she's having hypos at this time. And I'm like, I know. She's in the middle of dinner and she's having a hypo, and I have to stop and give her juice and jelly beans because she's dropping so low in the middle of dinner. And he goes, well, this insulin, and he started talking to me about this insulin, and I went, yeah, but we don't eat like that. He goes, no. All people have complex carbohydrates with dinner. They have pasta and rice and this. And I said, yeah, but we don't. And it's really hard. They don't treat you like an individual. They don't stop and ask you questions and personalize your treatment, which is really sad. It's really sad.
I just find that so interesting how they literally push you to eat more of the have actually eat more of the food she shouldn't eat. It's just crazy to me. But anyways, I wanted to get to where we are now. Run us through a day. What do you typically eat in a day, Ashley?
Well, at school I'll normally bring mum's pork crackling and
which is pork rinds in America.
Rinds. Yeah.
I make, so we have chocolate brownies that I make.
There's seed crackers.
She'll take cream cheese.
Frankfurts, Cheerios.
Yeah, little sausages. There's lots of things. I'm trying to think. We can't take nuts to school, but at home here, say on the weekend, Ashley will have macadamia nuts.
I'll eat whipped cream. Whipped cream is really
She has whipped cream with chocolate powder on it, no sugar.
cocoa powder.
But you like the occasional block of cheese?
Yes.
Cheese is like my favorite.
She loves her cheese. I mean, it's funny. All the people think as soon as you go low carb, they think, oh my goodness, she's so restricted. You're restricting her. But what's actually going through her mind is trying to actually tell you everything, because there's so much food that you can have. We make chocolate chip biscuits. We make brownies. I make trifle.
You make
custard. We make banana bread.
Yes, we have to use bananas, but
we have so many things that she can have. She's not missing out on anything. I mean, I even make my own chocolate so she can have chocolate. We've been experimenting with carnivore just of late. So, yeah, we're loving it, enjoying it.
Tell me about that.
It's just...
A carnivore diet mainly consists on pork rinds.
She loves pork rinds. So, I mean, it was a natural progression. I mean, I was sort of sitting here one night and I realized that even my other children, I was like, I'm sick of fighting them to eat their broccoli, their cauliflower. And then I was doing even more reading, as I like to do, and listening to, like lectins and oxalates. And so I'm doing even more reading on things that, happen with people with type 1 and stuff. Or autoimmune, sorry, I was sort of more reading into. And I sort of noticed, I started, experiments aren't the word, but I'm sorry, you guys are type 1. Everything is an experiment.
Every day of my life.
Every day of your life is an experiment. And so I would notice that post-meal, so dinner time, her bloods were slightly different if she was having just carnivore, just meat, and not adding in, like, say, cauliflower or broccoli or capsicum or things like that. And so I said to Ash, can we do a couple of experiments and just see your bloods during the school holidays? And they were very, very different. We actually had to lower her insulin, her basal and things like that, because and then so I wanted to understand what's now happening in the body when I get rid of these plant-based products, this plant-based food. What are they doing, even though they're low carb? what's happening here now? What's going on? Especially when we came back from Denver, Colorado. We spoke at Denver at a low carb conference there. They had a carnivore conference there, and so my ears were really open listening to this other way of living, like a carnivore approach to life. And yeah, it sort of just seems to have fit in a natural progression for us. I wouldn't say we're not strict carnivore, but we are predominantly carnivore.
I always like to call that. I actually made this chart once, and it had like big circle that was keto. Then it had meat-based keto. Then it had relaxed carnivore, where you had like meat and spices and stuff like that. And then it had strict, which is just beef, salt, and water. So I say you're like in the meat-based category. You'd probably say.
Yeah. I mean, look, we still have like avocados. I noticed are fine. She still has macadamia nuts. We have dark chocolate. But yeah, we are predominantly meat. We've cut down a lot. I mean, Ashley, as I said, Ashley was a big fruit eater before she was diagnosed, and she still occasionally has blueberries and raspberries, but they are very, very seldom.
Strawberries do nothing to me though.
No, strawberries are. But so things like tomatoes and capsicums, they were also something that Ashley loved to eat. But we've cut back on those a lot in the last 2 months. We've cut back right back on those. And we've noticed a huge improvement, changes in her bloods. And so I wanted to understand what is it? What are those foods doing to her? What do those foods have in them that could be causing differences in her body, in her bloods? Because as you would know too, when your body's stressed, you need more insulin. When your body's doing different things, you need different. And so I'm thinking these look like stress responses, even though she's not stressed. Maybe they're causing a response or an inflammatory or a stress response within her gut. Yeah. I might be a type 1 nerd now because I love learning.
Well,
everything.
I'm glad you are. And I mean, just for myself, I have noticed from trying it out that my basal needs have gone way down over time, like almost halved, which is significant. It has never happened before, even going low carb. So maybe there's something to that. I don't know. But have you noticed any profound changes from doing that?
Yeah, there's heaps of changes, but right, I mean, it's different at the moment because my understanding and what I've learned, Ashley being a teenager, she's growing so rapidly. She needs a lot of basal because there's so much cellular growth and change. And so we're on high amounts of basal just to deal with, I mean, she's almost as tall as me now. She's wearing the same size shoe as me, so all those carbs have really stunted her growth. But yeah, so every day is very, very different, but lowering those other parameters, so watching what we eat food wise, especially during different times of the month, and looking at our food and using food as a tool to manage her type 1 means that we ride that glucose line, that blood glucose line a lot better. Our judgment calls are better. If she does drop a bit low, we can correct with, I mean, actually most of the time when Ashley is in a lower state, we correct with just food. She just eats. She just has lunch or she just has a snack, like just like a normal child. When they're hungry, they eat. When they need energy, they eat. And so I can treat her just as normal as the rest of my children. I mean, the CGM is a lifesaver. We can watch that bar. You can see what she's doing and you can make judgment calls. But, yeah, being low carb, it really does mean that Ashley can just be that child again. She can eat. She can snack when she wants to. It's really lovely to just have my baby be I mean, I know she's a teenager, but she's still my baby. She can be just that beautiful little girl and just go for a bike ride, come home, grab a handful of nuts, have a biscuit, have a
low carb
low carb biscuit that I've made. it's nice that she can have, it's funny, when she was diagnosed, they said to me, you don't want to take her life away. Let her be normal. Let her be that child. Let her, go to McDonald's, go to KFC, have Burger King. And that to me is not a normal person. That is not a normal child. Now my daughter is a normal child. She's got
Just
that
eating differently.
freedom to eat what she wants, when she wants. That to me is normal.
I mean, as a diabetic, if you're eating the supposed normal way with the McDonald's and all that, you don't feel normal. And I wanted to touch on that. How are you feeling now compared to back then, Ashley?
Just have more energy, I guess.
That's good.
Her highs and lows. So we had a chat a little while ago because I wanted to understand her highs and lows feel different than what they were before.
Before, when I went low, I'd get very frustrated and I'd feel very tired and like
shaky, weak.
And now when I go low, it's sometimes I don't feel it, but if I do go too low, then yes, I will start to get shaky.
But we're talking like,
as in 2.1.
Yeah, like that's if she gets really, really low.
And then when I go high, I used to actually sometimes end up nearly going into tears.
She would cry a lot because I knew that was a sign of her being really, really high. She would just cry. And you'd say, what's wrong? She's like, I don't know. And she would just cry.
And now when I'm high, I just feel tired.
However, she will feel high at levels like 9 or 10, which I'm not sure what is in your... so our highs are different, but they are normal people. Like my body.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, we can always do the conversion later on. I can always edit it in. Don't worry about that.
180.
But,
so 180.
Yeah.
But she feels high at 180.
And that's good, in my opinion. I mean, you should feel high at 180. That's like, that's actually establishing, I'm actually, I feel normal where I'm at normal. Whereas if a lot of these diabetics, they're cruising at 300 all the time and they feel low at 120. Mm-hmm. That's not right.
Yeah.
That's
really, for me and everything that I've learned, that's so sad. Like it's scary. It's I wish I could sit and teach people everything that I've learned, and what these blood levels mean. I mean, Dr. Jody spoke to us about going above like 180, 185. Once that happens, a little body like this, your body will start to get thirsty. You want to drink water, so therefore you're peeing out. You're literally flushing out of your body calories that need to go into growth, because your body's trying to get rid of that sugar. It goes into a response of trying to get rid of that sugar. And then therefore it's not going into any cellular growth and growth. And that's what happens when you start to get, and as you said, a lot of these diabetics, especially these babies, these type 1 babies who need all this to grow, they're living in these levels where their body's just constantly flushing things out and they're not growing properly.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me, that just breaks my heart. That, these specialists are telling you that you can ride this, between 4 and 16. It's fine. It's fine. She can go up to 16. That's fine. That's 400. That's fine. Because she's a type 1 diabetic. That's just, that's just what's going to happen. I can't accept that. I'm sorry. I tell Ashley all the time, I can't accept that. I will not accept that. And this is why I do what I do, and this is why I teach her all these things, because I just cannot accept those levels. I cannot accept those parameters that we were given. So
understood.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you don't accept that. I think moms, especially moms, are really protective of their kids, and they're always the first ones to really be on it. And it always inspires me. Like in my case, it was my aunt that did all this research, but my mom actually listened to the doctor, and so I didn't learn about it for 15 years. But that's in the past. Anyways, speaking of learning, speaking of what you're the kind of person that likes to, you want to tell everyone, the world, about what you know. What is one thing that you'd like to tell anyone watching this right now, anyone that might be starting out? What's something you wish you knew when you started?
Basil.
basal insulin, that was my biggest, learning exactly what basal is needed for in the body. I guess that would be, that was our biggest eye-opener. But one thing I would love to say, especially from a mum to another mum, is I know this is your baby and you want to do everything you can to look after your baby. Go with your gut. Understand that you still can be a mum to your child. There is a different way. There is a better way. There is a way that your child can thrive and grow with type 1. You know, as much as I hate diabetes, my beautiful baby is growing and thriving, and diet is so important. What we put in our mouth, everything you put into her mouth is so important. But yeah, they're my two biggest things. Is I just wish, it's very scary as a mum having your baby diagnosed with something. And one of the things that I found is, or I seem to have seen, is that it's very traumatic for a parent to have your child diagnosed. And sometimes I feel that parents latch on to the doctor, the specialist, because you are so scared you're going to lose your child again. Because most of the diagnoses that I've heard of type 1, your child's very sick, they're in hospital, they're dying. But that's just that initial bit. You've now found out they've got type 1. You need to grow and you need to live and you need to have a life with that. And I found it's really hard for some parents to move past that traumatic experience. And so therefore, this is why they don't question or get the help that they need with type 1 diabetes. I could be wrong. Some people may correct me on that, but this is just my opinion of what I've seen. So sometimes it's a double whammy when, especially a baby's been diagnosed with type 1. We really need to help those parents move through that traumatic experience. We also need to help the type 1 move through that and get through that experience. And there's a huge lack within that diagnosis sphere, because a whole family is touched by type 1. When a diagnosis happens, it's a whole family. As much as it's her that has to have the needles, it's her that has to have the finger pricks, it's her that is numbers all day long, it still has a huge impact on the rest of the family. And this is where I'm studying at the moment to become a health coach and a life coach, because I want to be able to help not just type 1s, but to help parents, to help aunts, to help uncles who are affected by a type 1 diagnosis.
Understood. Hopefully this video gets out there on the internet waves and the message gets out there. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I just wish that more people could have a happy and healthy life with type 1 and thrive. And I'm really proud of you for getting up, and I love watching your interviews. I love seeing what you do. It's fantastic that you're helping in your way. And I think that's, this is what I'm trying to teach Ashley. I mean, you have this horrible thing. Let's face it, type 1 is horrible. But every type 1 I've met, you're just such beautiful hearted people and you want to help everybody. And so Ashley helps young little girls. She's got a couple of little girls that she plays dress up with, and she goes and helps. They're only like 5 or 6, but she shows them their CGM and her CGM, and they have insulin together. And I think it's very important that type 1s have other type 1s to, as much as
I have type 1 friends who are the same age as me.
Yeah, she has type 1 friends that are the same age as her. Because I think it's very important, because I get everything. This is my girl. This is my baby. The apple didn't fall far from the tree, but there's one thing I will never, ever, ever understand, and that is I don't have type 1. I don't get just that small part. And this is why people like yourself, Dr. Jody, I absolutely love you, because you have that part that I will never have with my child. But you're making changes in the world. You're doing fantastic things, and you're such inspiration for my baby to watch and see all these things that you're trying to do and change. And as a mum, it just gives me so much more hope that as she grows, she's just going to be able to grow and succeed and do anything that she wants as she gets older.
Exactly. And I believe all of us as type 1s have the capacity and the ability to do that. We just gotta know how to do it. And that's where things get awry because we get told the opposite advice. But hopefully interviews like this will inspire anyone watching to make that change and hopefully to tame that type 1. But we'll end it with that.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time, you two. It was an amazing experience being able to do this double interview with the two of you.
That's all right.
I wish you all the best in the future. Keep me updated on how that carnivore experiment's doing. And
Yeah, we will.
yeah, maybe I'll have you on some other time. But until next time, this is how Ashley tamed her type 1.